Welcome to Cognitive Liberty. I'm your host, Clyde Lewis. This show is brought to you by TLBTV and the Liberty Beacon Project.
Hi, everybody. I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Cognitive Liberty, brought to you by the TLBTV Network and the Liberty Beacon Project. And today, I am very pleased to equate you with someone that I think, well, he's one of my favorite people, Ben Fuchs, who I met in Salt Lake City, and I've had on my show a few times. He most certainly, my Ground Zero show, I certainly love the information he imparts. He is, what kind of pharmacist would you say you are?
Rogue pharmacist.
You're a rogue pharmacist, not a guerrilla pharmacist, but a rogue pharmacist.
Okay, guerrilla, that's good. I like that too.
Guerrilla pharmacy. Basically, finding ways to lose weight, which of course I've been dieting since I've had cancer, because I most certainly retained a lot of water and gained a lot of weight because I was lazy and tired and in pain. And this stuff happens to you if you let go of it and you don't do the right kind of nutrition. You seem to, your body basically takes over and you lose control. So I'm putting my life back in order and control. And Ben, I've always said, and I think that this is a very important thing to say, if you want to lose weight and if you want to be healthier, you have to psychologically prepare for it. How do you think one can psychologically prepare for the idea of changing their lives so they can be at least healthier and feeling better?
You know what? There's no atheist in a foxhole. You ever hear that saying? No atheist in a fox. I like this joke about there's a frog. A bunch of animals are out on the road, and it's getting to be nighttime, and the wild animals come at nighttime and they eat the little animals. So the little animals all have to run home in the dark. And it's getting dark, and they're looking around for the frog, their friend the frog, and they see the frog is stuck in this little rut by the side of the road. And they say, "Come on, jump out of the rut. We got to go. All the foxes are going to come. They're going to eat us all." And the little frog, he tries to jump out of the rut, tries to jump up the rut. He can't get out of the rut. And all the animals are looking. The foxes are going to come. They're going to eat you. You got to get out of the rut. And the frog says, "No, you got to go home. It's the end." And they're all crying. They're all sad because they know the frog is going to get eaten by the foxes. And they go home. And the next morning they come out, and there's the frog sitting on the road. And they said, "How did you get out of that rut? How come you're alive? You're still, you weren't eaten by the foxes." And the frog looks at him and goes, "The truck was coming."
That's a good motivator. I've always said, like, zombies are good motivators in graveyards. So
that's good. That's good. When you're motivated enough,
yeah.
When you're motivated enough, like you said, when you have a life-threatening emergency, your body's all of a sudden not cooperating. You got a big lump somewhere where there wasn't a lump. That's motivation. That's the problem. Is we wait until that happens. The trick is to preemptively have motivation. So what you're really asking is, how do you psychologically prepare yourself when you're not in an emergency state, an emergency moment? How do you proactively address your needs? And that is a little bit trickier. And the only way to do it is you got to use your imagination. And this is the way I do it, is use your imagination and zoom ahead and see what life will be like ahead. Or if you're fortunate enough to be able to see somebody who's suffering or in pain, sometimes that's a motivator as well.
Sometimes I see people who are bigger than I am, and I wonder how they're coping, because I know how I was coping. I wasn't. And I don't know what would be, for me, there are many motivating factors to wanting to lose weight. One was that, I got tired of having a hard time getting out of bed, and I still do sometimes because of sometimes I have pain I have to deal with. But there were other things too, not being able to, feel good during the day, feel tired, dragging. And there were a lot of things I did to, maintain. I saw something funny today, though, I wanted to share with you. I saw a poster that said, "Eat like nobody's going to see you naked." I thought that was very funny.
That's good. I tell this joke sometimes in my presentation. I say, I have this really cool diet for you. You can eat anything you want to eat. You can eat as much of it as you want, but you got to do it naked in the mirror. and Clyde, let me tell you, that puts the kibosh on your appetite like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, believe me.
Right?
Yeah.
You have French fries.
My wife always tells me, says, "Why do you always look in the mirror?" I says, "Because I want to see if I'm a different looking person." That's why. I mean, it's not like I don't mind the way I look. I just, when I put on the pounds, I see an older man. And when I lose the pounds, I see a younger man.
Naked in the mirror is very scary sometimes. Even if you don't have to wait to lose, just the flab sometimes. As you get older, I'm 57 years old and things aren't as tight as they used to be. Right. And looking in the mirror at yourself naked is an incredible motivator. That's a great motivator right there.
Yeah, and there are a number of other things too. I mean, there's certain tasks, simple tasks that are hard. And I remember reading Drew Carey one time, the guy that's on The Price
Oh
is
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. He lost a bunch of
Started
weight.
losing weight for the same reasons I do, and I did.
Did
Is
he get
that,
sick?
yeah, what's that?
Was he sick? Was Drew
No,
sick?
he just woke up one day and he said, I'm sick and tired of getting up, feeling tired, moving around, kind of, lumbering around, not doing anything, plopping around, eating crap. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes just the idea of knowing that you're eating things that, you could do away with. I mean, one of the things that happened to me, I went on this trip and the only thing that was open was McDonald's. And I'm like going, ooh, I don't know if I want to do this.
Even
And
in
so
your
I
worst
figured-
days?
What's that?
Even in your worst days, you couldn't do McDonald's?
Oh no, I haven't. No, I haven't done McDonald's in a long time. So I did McDonald's, and what was funny was, I didn't remember Big Mac's tasting this horrible for one thing, and another thing is that it just wasn't satisfying to me.
Right.
And I realized that, now I know why they call it empty calories and why they call it crappy food.
That's
Because
right.
it's there for emergencies. It's there when you don't have anything else,
Even
And it used to be, I'd say peanut butter sandwich, Big Mac, Big Mac. Now I'm saying peanut butter sandwich is probably better than a Big Mac.
You're developing your acuity, your sensory acuity, and that's really one of the things that happens when you change your habits is you become more sensitive to things that you weren't sensitive to before.
Right, and see, that's the thing is you make choices as to how you want to feel, and I realized that when you have a high protein, high in vegetable diet, when you're eating green vegetables. I mean, yellow vegetables, I guess you can eat them if you want to, but the problem with the yellow vegetables is a lot of them, we run into GMO problems. We run into allergies. We run into, corn problems. Corn gives you problems sometimes with digestion. You have problems with wheat and digestion.
Yeah.
And so the best thing for you to do to keep yourself from being sluggish is to avoid these things as much as possible. And it got to that point with candy with me. I mean, I don't eat as a person, I don't understand people who would just go and buy a candy bar and eat a candy bar. But I know sometimes they're, if you want chocolate, that's what you have. But I just don't crave chocolate or candy or anything like that. I'm not the one to hit the donut shop. I mean, the only time, I've always said something to the effect that there's a reason why they call it a treat. Because a treat is something special. It's not something you're going to have every day. So if you say to yourself, well, I'm going to eat treats every day, then they're not treats anymore. There's nothing special about them.
Right. What was your weakness? What was your favorite? Like if your back was up against the wall, or you had a bad day or whatever, what would you go for? Pizza?
Cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger?
I love cheeseburgers. And, I also like a good chicken dinner,
Okay, but that's not that bad. How about pizza?
Oh, pizza for me, when I was younger, I really loved pizza. But now, pizza places, it used to be they'd say, you'd never get a bad pizza. The pizza's always good. No, not anymore. I don't know. I think lately a lot of the fast food chains that do pizza, like Domino's and Pizza Hut, they put too much salt in their sauces. It used to be the sauces were very hearty and they didn't overdo it with the sauce. You had the right amount of cheese and the right amount of sauce, and the meats were good. But now it just seems like they put too much of that sugary or salty sauce on the pizza. And of course, I used to really like the thick crust. Now I like a thinner crust.
You still eat pizza?
Do I?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, once again, everything that I eat anymore, if it's bad or if I consider it bad, like a pizza or a burger or something like that, it's because I'm stuck. Otherwise, I'm eating a lot of Asian food. I eat more Thai food than I eat anything else because it's mostly vegetables.
Soups?
What's that?
Like soups, like pho. You know what pho is, or pho?
And when I have pho, I usually like the cold pho. I like it because it has less of the noodle, more of the protein and the vegetables in it. So soup, I think, is a little bit too salty, so I avoid the saltiness of the soup. But every once in a while, I mean, I have a good chicken soup. Yeah, I love that.
I love a good chicken soup too. So those aren't bad foods. So you're not into the sweets. That's not your deal.
I'm really not into them. And the funny thing is when I see people eat too many of them, I kind of get sick to watch it. It's kind of like, when a smoker, when they stop smoking, they get annoyed by other people who smoke. When you cut back on some of the sweets, I mean, when you don't get your sweets from fruit, or if my wife offers me something, I say, no, I'm not getting it. She goes, well, just take a little taste. I do, but it's just, unless, of course, it's something like a birthday or a celebration or something.
You'll have a piece of birthday cake.
Piece of birthday cake. But, that's the thing, is that if you're finding yourself eating more of the treats, if you find yourself, in a position where you go to the donut shop every day, or you get a pastry every day, or you get these things, you're just blowing it because it's not good for your body. But if you're doing things where you're eating a lot of proteins, I mean, eggs, and you're eating a lot of those things. I mean, I had an opportunity to meet my stepson's father. He's from Manchester, England. And when I asked him, we went out to dinner, and I said to him, I said, "What do you eat?" He says, "I just eat eggs." He says, "I eat eggs."
Just eggs?
Just eggs. And I said, "Really?" I said, "So that's what you want?" He says, "Oh, yeah, eggs." But he says, "I love American hash browns." So he says, "I'm going to be bad. I'm going to have American hash browns." And so I took him out for some stuffed hash browns, which are loaded with cheese and cottage cheese and sour cream.
Potatoes are a great food. There's actually this thing called the potato hack diet. Have you ever heard of the potato hack diet?
Yeah, didn't Penn Jillette go on that?
Yep, he wrote a book about it, actually. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, all you eat is potatoes. I think you eat like as much potatoes as you want, but you take days off from food as part of the equation. So you take days off from food, but when you're eating, you just eat potatoes. You can eat as many, but no butter, no salt, no nothing on the potato, just the potato.
Oh, that's going to be boring.
It's kind of boring. It's not flavorful. But, when you need to lose a lot of weight, you do what you can do, and it's a lot better than just completely fasting. People have a hard time.
Well, I think what I do is very easy, and it does lose weight for me, and that is, if it's a small portion of a meat, mostly chicken.
Satisfying.
Chicken, turkey, pork sometimes. I mean, I like pork. Beef, about, I don't know, something about this size maybe, because I'm a bigger guy.
You don't eat a lot.
So I eat.
That's the thing about sweets and carbohydrates is you need to eat a lot and you get sick of it before you get full.
Right.
So like donuts, you get nauseous and want to throw up, but you won't be full.
Right.
And but meat, you can have a small piece of it and it's very, very satisfying and very filling. Same with eggs.
Well, one of the things that's interesting is that now that I'm losing weight and I've noticed people, even when I'm shopping, okay, I notice people who are heavy. I mean, I'm still heavy. I mean, I pull no punches. I know I'm still heavy, and I know I can get down a lot more, and I'm going to. But I've noticed, the shopping carts of people who are heavy that I see at the stores.
Yeah.
You see things like Eggo waffles. You see things like loaves of bread. You see things like, noodles and macaroni and cheese and all this stuff. I'm thinking to myself, if people were to be told that the pastas and the breads and the Eggo waffles and all these things that they eat are just sugar. So they break down into sugars, and the sugars turn into fats.
That's right.
And it turns into body fat because, of course, the regulation basically packs it on. And so I would like to explain, and I'm sure that it's something most people don't think about, is that the American diet itself, I believe, is a forced sugar diet, and this is why.
Because the carbs.
I eat out a lot because I'm very busy. I mean, I come in here at 11 o'clock to do ground zero, and I go home at midnight. So I eat things, from food carts and from, restaurants, at least I have them prepared in a way that they're lighter. But the thing is that when you go to a restaurant, for example, and you sit down and you say, "I would like chicken breast, and I would like, do you have spinach?" "Yes." "Okay, and spinach." And they go, "Do you want to roll with that?" "No, I don't." Do you want like potato with that?" "No, I don't." And they look at you kind of funny, like, "Well, okay." And then they bring you the food, and sure enough, there's a potato sitting there, and there's toast sitting there, or some buttered or cheese toast. And I'm looking there thinking to myself, Americans are so they're so prone to have something starchy with everything they eat. Right. And I know that when I was in Argentina, one of the things that they did, because there was more of a European flair there, was that they would eat their bread as a meal. Bread was just a meal. It was, you wouldn't have bread with, they'd sit you down and say, "Do you want bread or do you want meat?" And you'd say, "Oh, I want meat," because they serve steak and they serve chicken and they serve lamb. And but if you had bread, they didn't expect you to eat anything else. They would just give you a big basket of baguette bread, really good bread, kind of a salty, less yeasty bread. You put butter on it and you'd eat it, and then they bring you some cheese or something to go with it, maybe some wine or maybe something else. And that was what they considered a meal. If you're having cheese and bread, that's a meal.
Are they big people?
What's that?
Are they large people? Are they?
No, they're not. Wow. And that's because of the fact that they don't have their carbs with their bread. It's kind of a French thing. You don't mix them, and so. But Americans tend to think that everything they eat has to have a starch. It has to have starch.
Starch requires a different enzyme system than protein does. And one of the worst things you can do is mix starches with protein. Starches require acid enzymes. Carbohydrates require alkaline enzymes. And what ends up happening is the protein doesn't get digested. The carbs do. You end up packing on the pounds, and you end up with putrefying protein in your gut. And that's a really big problem. Starches you shouldn't have potatoes and eggs or potatoes and steak. It should be eaten separately. That's
right. And another thing you brought up when I met you in Salt Lake City, which was a very important thing that we need to talk about, is that if you want to be a millionaire in the United States,
you like that?
Open a restaurant with salty, greasy, and sugary, and you will make $1 million. And it's true.
That's true, right? Everything, pizza, burritos, tacos, donuts, everything has those combinations, those 3 flavors, because those are the 3 major flavors that everybody's driving for. But the good news is you can hack into those. If you eat salt, sea salt, or some kind of minerals, that'll get you through your salt cravings. If you eat protein, that gets you through sugar cravings. And if you eat good fat, that gets you through your fat cravings. So for people who crave pizza, for example, I'm just picking that out. If you eat a bunch of coconut oil before you get your pizza or your potato chips or any greasy food, you're not going to want that greasy food, and you'll have your fat needs met with a good fat, like coconut oil or butter or something along those lines. Same with salt. Drinking salt water is one of the best things you could do for energy, for your adrenal glands, and to get you off of eating salty foods, eating potato chips and pretzels and things that people crave. So you want to, again, be preemptively hit your taste bud buttons. But if you're out there and you're hungry and somebody presents salt, sugar, and sweet in front of you, or salt, sugar, and fat in front of you, there's no way you can't resist it.
I've trained my body to actually substitute things like you're talking about to keep me from getting any weight put on, and that is if I'm craving something sugary, or if I have like a sugar craving or a salt craving, both sugar and salt cravings can be tempered with cheese. So you get a nice little piece of cheese, cheddar, sharp cheddar, and you eat it, it kills those cravings for some reason, and it's low in carb. And then,
you're getting milk sugar, you're getting lactose, you're getting milk sugar, lactose, you're getting salt from the cheese, and you're also getting fat, which is why people love cheese. You're getting all 3. So if you just have a little piece of cheese, that'll get you through your cravings.
Right. And then the crunchy stuff that you can have, people usually crave crunchy, whether it's a crunchy, roll or a crunchy pizza or something. Walnuts, almonds, cashews, things like that. They're low calorie, and you can eat as many as you want. Usually, they're good in fiber, so the fiber is definitely there. Yeah,
walnuts are the best. If you have to pick a nut, walnuts are the best. Almonds are up there too. Some people have problems with nuts, so you got to be a little bit careful. But if you can eat nuts, man, walnuts for your brain, for your intestine, for your heart, for the fiber, for the electrolytes. There's protein in there. Nuts are amazing, but you got to be. Some people have a problem with them, so you got to be careful.
And then if you want dessert, like if you're craving a brownie or if you're craving cake, like that. Most people in America, this is what's weird. In the United States, people, when they go to a restaurant, they have their coffee first. Have the coffee after the meal. Why? Because that will mimic a dessert because it has the same things. It has kind of like that chocolatey rich flavor that you're craving. It has the bitterness you're craving. And plus, it makes you feel kind of lifted up after a meal.
Now, do people drink coffee? I've never really drank coffee, but do people drink coffee before their meals?
Here in America, they do. When you go to a restaurant, you sit down for breakfast. You sit down for anything. They ask you, would you like coffee?
Bad move.
It depends on the meal, because I will drink coffee at breakfast because it's a ritual for me. I drink coffee every day in the morning. But if I'm ever offered coffee in the evening, or if I've ever offered coffee in the afternoon, I always say, no coffee, I'll have water, but then I will drink coffee after the meal. And the reason why is because if you drink coffee after the meal, for some reason, they say that caffeine stimulates appetite. I think coffee kind of settles the appetite a bit. It's almost like it's a dessert type reward.
Interesting.
Drink it. And so it's kind of like, I don't need the cake. I don't need the ice cream. I got coffee. And it's going to take care of that need for some chocolatey rich flavor. And plus, there are 3 things you can put in coffee that most certainly help you lose weight, in my opinion. Coconut oil, sometimes, if you put that in coffee, and butter.
Okay.
We're talking about free-range, grass-fed butter, Irish butter. You mix that together. They call that bulletproof coffee.
I've seen that.
And what that does is it gives you a lot of the vitamins and minerals. You could drink it and have it replace a meal. It does all that for you. And it's good for regularity because it helps you stay regular if you do that. The other thing is that sometimes people think it's okay to put the cream, real cream in their coffee. And the reason why is because you get the butter fat you wouldn't normally get from half and half. And so sometimes the butter fat does you better than the sugars that come with milk or half and half. And so it's helped me lose weight as well.
Does the fat make it more coffee-ish? Does it enhance the coffee flavor?
It enhances it, makes it richer, and it makes it more satisfying, and it makes the coffee taste better because, like I say, I use coffee as a dessert. It's kind of like my reward and my treat.
Interesting.
For keeping myself on my diet, and it doesn't help. It doesn't make me gain weight either, and I think that's amazing. It just depends on what you put in it. I mean, I'm learning about things like monk fruit. It's a sweetener that I use sometimes. I just had coconut sugar the other day. I don't know if you've tried that yet.
I have. I use it in skincare, actually.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I like sugar. It's great in skincare. Sugar traps water. It's great in skincare, but I've just been recently experimenting with coconut sugar. Do you like the taste of it?
Yeah, I really didn't detect any bad flavor in it. It was kind of like, it was really nice that I tried it. I was surprised because, I don't like coconut water all that well because when I drink it, everything tastes like coconut afterwards. It's
okay. All right.
Coconut and some sort of a Thai dish doesn't. Well, it depends on what it is, though. I mean, I can have.
Are you a fan of coconut?
Well, they have coconut in. In the Thai food sometimes in something called tom kha, which if you've never had tom kha, you're not.
Is your wife Asian? Your wife is Asian.
No, she's Russian actually. She's of Russian descent.
How do you know so much about Asian stuff? You're always you always have all this Asian expertise for some reason.
Well, I'm a Thai food specialist. So if you ever go out for Thai, you'll know what. I mean, most people go out and say, "I like pad Thai." I say, "No, man, you got to try this." So if you ever go out for Thai, a lot of people don't know about this secret. It's called tom kha chicken. And you have to get that and have it. It's a soup. And you will thank me because it's one of the best things on the planet to eat.
And it has coconut in it?
Yes, it does.
I'm a big fan of coconut.
Yeah, coconut. It has, I can't explain it. It's just a nice coconut Thai.
Creamy? It's like a creamy soup?
It depends on how they prepare it. I've had it creamy, and I've had it with some red curry in it. And it's kind of a red color. They put tomatoes in it. They put mushrooms in it, they put chicken in it, and they put ginger in it. So it's like this.
Yeah, now you get me all hungry.
All these good herbs that you're going to put in your body, and it's worthy of just.
That sounds awesome.
You have a lot. It's so beautiful. I wanted to also a number of other issues I wanted to bring up is after the eclipse, there were a lot of people who called about inflammation, and this is why. It's because when the eclipse happened, a lot of people talked about how they felt a lot of pain. And I told them, well, maybe it was because of the fact that, when the sun darkened as it did, our bodies responded with inflammation. And we've talked about what they called inflammatory cytokines, where, that seems to be the reason why many Americans are depressed, because they don't realize that they're having this inflammatory cytokine that's happening with some of the things you eat, like wheat and other things create it.
Yeah.
But I was curious, how is it that we can bring down inflammation? What are some, and I know you talked about this in Salt Lake as well, that everything is just a case of inflammation. So tell us about inflammation and how we can.
Great word. I love the word inflammation. So there's a couple things that come to mind. First of all, inflammation is a protective response. That's the most important thing to understand about inflammation. It's kind of like an airbag. If you when you get into a car accident or a car crash, you get this big airbag. It acts to protect you from the jolt of the accident. That's what inflammation is. It's the body's airbag, and it's extremely functional. So when you break your ankle, the body will build a little cushion, a little airbag around the break so that the break can heal. Now, everybody knows what that is. That's a visible, observable sign of inflammation. That's called macro inflammation. It's big inflammation. But what's missed is that same inflammatory response, that same airbag or beaver's dam, I like to think of it, that protects a damaged tissue occurs microscopically. That's called microinflammation, and it occurs at the level of the cell. And this we don't see it, so we don't realize that we can be inflamed in the same way that you're inflamed when you have a broken ankle, but inside the body at a microscopic level. Now, inflammation in your leg, when you break your leg or you break your ankle, is a very good thing because it provides a cushion. But what happens around that area is oxygen cannot get into that area. Food and nourishment cannot get into that area, and toxins cannot leave. Now, if you break your ankle, it's a good thing, but you want that inflammation to gradually subside. If it didn't gradually subside, the tissue underneath would die because it wouldn't get nourished, it wouldn't get oxygenated, it wouldn't get toxified. In the case of microinflammation, that's exactly what happens. When a cell dies, the body will protect itself from the residual or from the residue of that dead cell. Cell dies, it explodes, it spews out its chemicals, and the body will kind of wall off that area microscopically. You won't see it, you won't feel it, it'll be imperceptible, but the body will protect itself by surrounding that area with fibers and fluid, which function like an airbag. I like to think of it like a beaver's dam. Not a problem if it happens one time. But what happens with us is due to chronic assaults and chronic cell death, we end up with patches, large areas of inflammatory response that nourishment can't get in, it can't get into, oxygen cannot get into, and toxins cannot leave. And what ends up happening then is large areas of cells start to die, which creates a larger inflammatory response. The body then protects itself from that larger area. Again, nourishment cannot get in, oxygen cannot get in, toxins cannot get out, so more cells die, and you get a larger inflammatory response. And this happens over and over and over again, secondary to the way we eat, secondary to the sugar we ingest, and secondary to stress. And by the time we're 30 or 40 or 50 years old, you've got these large pockets of cells of necrotic or dead tissue that cannot get fed, that haven't been fed or haven't been oxygenated or haven't been detoxified. And ultimately the end result is you end up with a pain somewhere, you end up with joint damage, and we think it just happened. We don't realize that there's been this micro-inflammatory response that has been perpetuated sometimes for decades, certainly for years or months, but sometimes over the course of decades. So the key is to understand that the initiating factor of this inflammatory response is cell death following attack. Inflammatory response is always the manifestation of the immune system. The immune system is the defensive system. Whenever you have a defensive response, the only thing you got to figure out if you want to eliminate it is what is the offending agent. So the answer to inflammation is to cease the input of offending agents into the system. Offending agents only come in through three directions or through three portals or vectors. Number one, through the nose. You can breathe in offending agents. That happens rarely. Number two, through the skin. You can inject offending agents, and that does happen when people are doing vaccines or they're abusing drugs or other ways that they inject things. But by far and away, the major input of offending agents into the body and the major headquarters of the immune system is through the intestine, at the level of the intestine, the intestinal blood juncture. So the answer to all inflammatory health issues is food and digestion. I'm not saying that because I'm a foodie. You know how there are these people who are foodie. I'm not a foodie. I don't want people to think I'm a foodie. And then there's the whole guilt thing that's associated with food. But if you have an inflammatory health issue and all dis-ease is about inflammation, the key to resolving it is to work on food and digestion. That's why that's so important.
There was a show, I think we did the show on Ground Zero called Gut Feeling. And what that was is that they were doing some studies about how, the gut or the stomach is one of the centers of the body that notifies the brain of trouble. And it's because of the fact that the stomach is the area where, we feel the onset with nausea and other things where trouble starts, pain.
Where trouble usually starts.
Yeah, starts in the stomach.
Yeah.
And they were saying that, and I had this theory for the longest time, and I used to tell doctors this. I used to say, I think the problem with depression and the problem with panic attacks and all those things start in the gut.
100%.
If the gut sends you a signal that something's in trouble, it activates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve goes to the throat and the brain. You feel like you're going to be collapsing for air. You feel those moments of doom. And it has to do with the enzymes and the fauna and the flora and everything in your gut, because if that whole uniformity is disturbed, it goes to the brain and you start feeling brain sick. You have this, and they call it sickness disorder. The entire country, I was reading a statistic that doctors are saying that we are all under something called sickness disorder, whether it be mentally or bodily or even
terrible.
What's that?
That's terrible.
Yeah, so they call it sickness disorder. So everybody has a problem that has to be covered up by pharmaceuticals, they say.
Or sugar or the way we eat. But there are a couple of interesting things. First of all, it's not the stomach, it's the intestine. Okay, the intestine is really what the gut is, and there's a brain in the intestine. There's a really cool book out called The Second Brain, which really talks a lot about this. Although the book came out about 25 years ago, and it was a radical idea. Today, it's not a radical idea anymore. You have a brain located in your intestine, and that brain is communicating with the brain in your head. And when there's a problem at the level of the intestine, signals are sent to the brain, and the brain doesn't really know necessarily. It's just, it'll make up a reason. It'll make up a reason for the distress. It'll make up the reason. You'll think for the anxiety, and the brain will say, oh, it was my childhood, or oh, it was my boss. And you'll come up with all of these stories, and really the only thing that's happening is your intestine is sending a signal to your brain that says something's wrong here. And our brain doesn't necessarily connect it with the foods we ate, so it makes up a story. And a lot of times people are depressed about things, a story they made up about their past or a story they made up about their lives, when all that's going on is signals are coming from the intestine and saying, hey, you just ate the wrong food. Or perhaps you have messed up gut bacteria, dysbiosis. There's something wrong with the bacteria. Clyde, all roads lead to the intestine, all of them. And you can prove this to yourself by fasting. When you give yourself a food holiday, when you give your intestine a break for 24 to 48 hours, almost all inflammatory health challenges, which is to say most inflammatory health challenges, they're all inflammatory, they're all involve inflammation, will begin to resolve. This is especially true with autoimmunity, which, as you know, is an epidemic, and I'm convinced that it's related to not only the way we're eating, but also things like glyphosate, which I'm sure you talked about, and fertilizers and pesticides in the food, not to mention GMO, et cetera. We were talking earlier, by the way, about how everything has starches, how we always have starches, carbs with all of our meals. Have you heard of this book called Empires of Food?
I have heard of it, yes.
Isn't that have you seen it? It's an amazingly interesting story that talks about how all the great empires throughout history have always been carbohydrate empires, grain empires. There's these economic incentives that induce us to eat these kinds of foods that punish our gut. You know, grains are seeds, right? At the end of the day, nature doesn't want its seeds to be eaten. Nature protects its seeds, like that's the goal to nature, because that's the future generation. So nature has put ingredients or chemicals into seeds that will punish the animal that is stupid enough to eat the seeds. We call them anti-nutrients. Gluten is the classic example of those. Well, our obsession with grains, our addiction with grains, the way we eat food, the way we eat grains today at every meal is costing us our health to a degree that is absolutely mind-boggling. And the way you can prove this to yourself is go grain-free and watch what happens. And this is especially true if you have Crohn's disease, celiac disease, irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, or any intestinal health problem.
And not just the gluten, but people are not aware that there is sort of an opiate that's involved here.
Absolutely.
Called gelato.
Endorphins. Yeah. Endorphins, they call them.
Yeah, and it makes you crave more.
That's right.
Starches, because you get into the state where, you know, and I used to have this theory that there was something they put in fast food to get you coming back for more. I don't think they put it in there anymore because it's gross.
You know,
they're on TV that it tastes in your mouth and in your gut, but
always. Have you ever heard of the Manel Institute?
No.
The Manel Institute is a pharmaceutical company and big food company, a funded institute that researches how different chemicals affect your brain. And these PhDs at the Manel Institute spend all day figuring out what kind of chemicals they can put in the foods to make you crave those foods. And so guaranteed, those things are still in the foods. Guaranteed those things are still in the fast foods. And when it comes to fast food, by the way, the reason they call it fast food is not because they make it fast. It's because you have to eat it fast. Because if you didn't eat it fast, you would never eat it. Because the food is so tasteless and so awful and so textureless. You know, it's like, next time you have a McDonald's hamburger, if you ever do have a McDonald's hamburger again, try eating it real slowly. Try chewing it really, really slow and feeling all that gristle in your mouth and all that texture. And it's the most disgusting thing ever. You have to eat it really fast. So not only do food companies put chemicals in their food to make you eat them, they put chemicals in the food to make you eat them fast. They call it slip. They want the foods to have slip so it slides down your throat, because they know that if the food doesn't slide down the throat quickly and people can actually taste the food, they'll never eat it. So fast food is not called fast food because they make it fast, because you got to eat it fast. And if you want to wean yourself off it, try eating your McDonald's hamburger really, really slowly.
Now that we're on the subject of the foods that we consider to be bad, there are more warnings out now about HDL and LDL cholesterols.
Okay.
And now they're saying something to the effect that, what is it I got here? It says the study found in men with extreme levels of HDL in their blood that 106% higher chance of dying prematurely than men with normal levels of this type of cholesterol. Is this a push for statin drugs? And if it is, what do you think? I mean, I find statin drugs to be responsible for a lot of problems in this country.
They're awful drugs.
They're awful drugs.
Yeah, awful drugs. All drugs are awful, really, but statin drugs are insidious because you don't need them, really. Here's the thing. The cholesterol hypothesis is ridiculous to anybody who understands biochemistry. It's a nonsensical hypothesis, the idea that somehow your heart disease is caused by too much cholesterol in your blood. Not the case. First of all, the blockages that cholesterol cause in the arteries, those are compensated for by something called collateralization. In other words, when you have blockages in arteries, your body will form collateral, natural bypasses so that the heart can get oxygenated. That's first of all. So the cholesterol hypothesis is nonsense. Second of all, HDL and LDL are not cholesterol. HDL is high density lipoprotein. LDL is low density lipoprotein. It's not cholesterol. Lipoprotein is a round circle, it's a bubble that carries cholesterol. The blood is watery, and water and oil don't mix, or water and fat don't mix. Cholesterol is a waxy, fatty substance, so it has to be carried around in the blood in a bubble. HDL carries the cholesterol into the liver. LDL for storage. LDL carries the cholesterol into the organs and the tissues for usage. So it's a directional thing. So first of all, HDL and LDL are not cholesterol. They're markers that are supposedly, based on statistics, associated with heart disease, but only statistics. Not in real life. As it turns out, you can have high HDL and drop dead of a heart attack, or you can have low LDL and drop dead of a heart attack. I mean, the numbers don't always correlate. Statistically, they may, but in individuals, not a statistic. This is the problem with statistics. They take large numbers of people and they say, oh, 1% people have a higher risk or 2% people have higher risk, but everybody is an individual. So you can't go by statistical measurements when it comes to you and your personal life. What you can be rest assured is that a statin drug is a drug and your body has to detoxify it and process it and eliminate it out quickly, and it's a poison. That's not a statistic, that's a fact. So you're trying to fix your statistics by using something that's factually a poison, doesn't pass the smell test. The third and the worst part about this whole cholesterol mania is the fact that cholesterol is arguably the single most important chemical in your body. It's responsible for the production of hormones. It's responsible, it plays a role in the production of the cell membrane, the outer part of the cell. Your brain is 25% cholesterol. It's important for your immune system. Cholesterol is important for making stress hormone. Vitamin D is a type of cholesterol. Cholesterol is endlessly important, especially for building and for repair and for growth. And so the reason why people's cholesterol levels have gone up is because we've tricked the body into thinking that it's supposed to be growing and it's supposed to be repairing. And how have we done that? By eating sugar. From an evolutionary perspective, sugar was only around on the African savanna for a couple months a year in the summertime. And so the body is designed to respond to sugar with growth and with building. The problem is we've tricked the body into thinking it's summertime all the time. We eat sugar all the time. From a historical evolutionary perspective, we were only supposed to have sugar for a couple of months a year. So we fool the body into thinking that it constantly needs to be secreting building chemicals. Cholesterol levels go up when you eat sugar. Elevated insulin and elevated sugar are the reason cholesterol goes up. And this explains the connection, the seeming relationship between cholesterol and heart disease. You see, it's not the cholesterol, it's the sugar. And it's the insulin that caused the problem. So, and any diabetic will tell you that elevated blood sugar goes hand in hand with elevated blood cholesterol. They work together. There are even drugs out now that take care of your sugar and take care of your cholesterol all in one fell swoop. You take a drug that has anti-sugar and anti-cholesterol properties. So forget the statin drug. Use your lifestyle to control your cholesterol, and you'll take care of your weight. You'll lower your blood pressure. You'll lower your cholesterol, and you'll protect your heart. You'll have more longevity. All of the markers of health will improve simply by, number one, reducing your intake of sugar, and number two, using nutrients that help your body process sugar. A classic example is vitamin B3, niacin. It turns out that the most powerful natural statin drug is niacin, vitamin B3. Before statin drugs came out, it was used as medicine for lowering your cholesterol. And niacin, one of niacin's main roles in the body is to help the body process sugar. Anything that helps your body process sugar and reducing your sugar intake is how you lower your cholesterol naturally, and protect your heart truly. It's not artificially lowering your cholesterol. It's really taking care of your heart by lowering your cholesterol naturally. That's the best way to take care of your heart.
Are they finding that a lack of cholesterol in the body can cause Alzheimer's? I've been hearing a lot of things.
Very few people have a lack of cholesterol, but cholesterol is largely made in the liver, so that if you have a liver problem, you may not be making enough cholesterol. The best way to make sure you have enough cholesterol is to eat eggs or eat cholesterol-containing foods. There's a very interesting feedback mechanism between the cholesterol you eat and the cholesterol you make, so that the more cholesterol you're eating, the less cholesterol you're making. So eggs are in essence a natural statin drug. And you understand how that works? Because you're eating cholesterol, your body makes less cholesterol. But even better, in nature, the foods that contain cholesterol, because cholesterol is a building substance, also contain vitamin A, which is a building vitamin. Also contain vitamin D, which is a building vitamin. Also contain lecithin, which helps the body process fats. Also contains something called factor X, which we now think is vitamin K, which is very important for helping the body utilize calcium and build bone. So when you eat cholesterol-containing foods, the kind of foods the medical model tells you not to eat, not only are you getting an incredibly important building substance, not only are you getting an incredibly important brain health substance, but you're also getting all the nutrients that are in what I call the cholesterol complex, the lecithin, the vitamin A, the vitamin D, and the vitamin K.
Also, we're looking at talk about and questions about and fears about overdosing on B vitamins.
There was an article that came out today. Can't happen. Can't happen.
It can't happen? What exactly?
Vitamins are water soluble. You'll pee them out.
Okay.
What can happen, and this is what was in the study. First of all, this was what's called an epidemiological study. And epidemiology, along with statistics, are the two greatest scams in medicine and in pharmacy. Because what they do is to do an epidemiological study, what you do is you interview people. You basically talk to people and see what they ate, and then you correlate how they live their lives somehow, and you correlate how they live their lives with their disease state. The problem is people don't always know, or they're not always honest. They don't always tell you. So you're trying to make a conclusion or draw a conclusion based on what people's memory is or based on what people's honesty is, and it doesn't always work. So in science, we have a saying, correlation is not causation. Just because two things are correlated doesn't mean there are causal relationships. So just because people eat cholesterol and then they have heart attacks doesn't mean that the cholesterol caused the heart attack. They may be correlated, but it doesn't apply that there's a causal relationship. Just because flies are around garbage doesn't mean that the flies cause the garbage. The flies are correlated with the garbage, but it doesn't mean that they're causally related. So when it comes to the B vitamins are water soluble. So that means you urinate them out. All right? So it's impossible, even if you have this epidemiological study that shows that this is the study that was published in I think it was the Journal of Oncology that you're talking about. They took a bunch of smokers and they interviewed them. They asked them what they ate and what they supplemented. And it turns out that the ones who said that they supplemented with vitamin B6 and vitamin B12 had higher rates of cancer. Or it was cancer? I think it was cancer. And two to four times the rates of cancer. So they say, immediately, well, vitamin B6 and vitamin B12, and you take them as vitamins, they can cause cancer. No. B vitamins are water soluble. You urinate them out. You cannot take too much. But what can happen with the B vitamins is, in nature, the B vitamins are found as a complex. B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, folic acid, they all exist together. If you take one B vitamin, say you take B6 in a high dose, when the body excretes the B6, it's water soluble, you'll urinate it out, it's going to pull out the B5 and the B3 and the B1. And if you're not adding those in, you're going to be deficient in these other vitamins. So when you're taking too much of one kind of B vitamin, because they're not supposed to be taken individually, you can become deficient in the other B vitamins, which shows you that this whole idea of correlation is silly, because it could very well be that it's B1 deficiency that's causing the increase in cancer, or B2 deficiency, or B3, which means not only should you be, it's not true that taking too many vitamins is causing heart disease or causing cancer. It may be that you need more. It may be that with your B6, you should be taking B1 and B2 and B3 and B5 and all of the B vitamins together. It doesn't pass the smell test that you can overdose on B6 or B12, unless maybe you were, injected it super ridiculous doses and you overloaded your system somehow. But just taking it orally, that's very, very unlikely to occur.
People have made the arguments, and I know that because of the fact that I've partnered with Longevity, and we provide information on our website, groundzeroforlife.com. And also there's a phone number that's 877-877-4202 where you can call in and talk about, what you can use. But there are some people who say, well, we don't need, supplements. We don't need these things because our body makes them ourselves. And I used to think that way. And then I noticed people around me who take supplements, who supplement, and they live better lives. They actually look better. They feel better. I mean, I'm looking better since I've been doing it. And I just don't understand how we have studies that come out and say, you don't need these nutrients, you don't need these vitamins. Is this a conspiracy to turn people away from these types of remedies because Big Pharma finds it like offensive that you're willing to take these things and you're not having regulated by a doctor?
I don't know if they're actually plotting around a boardroom table and at Merck Sharp and Dohme or Merck or at Pfizer or at these drug companies. But I think there is a mindset that is perpetuated through medical schools and through, I know in pharmacy school, that's the idea that everything you can get is in food. The problem is, I know as a therapist that when people take certain nutrients, their blood pressure drops, or their skin health improves, or they lose weight, or they have a reduced appetite. I also know that a lot of times when we eat, we're eating to get nutrients that should be in the food, and because the nutrients aren't in the food, we keep eating. So people tend to lose weight when they start a nutritional supplement program. They tend to have a reduced appetite when they're on or improved satiety, quicker satiety when they're in a nutritional supplement program. I can't argue with what I've seen with my own eyes. I've seen people's health improved. I've seen people lose weight. I've seen people feel better. I've seen people have more energy. I've seen people eat less when they're on supplements. And to me, that's all I need to see. If I see with my own eyes as a therapist that somebody's blood pressure drops once they start getting on magnesium or getting on the B complex, I'm going to be suggesting those nutrients, regardless of what I hear in terms of theory or in concept. From a strictly evidentiary point of view, strictly empirical. If I see somebody is going to benefit, if I see somebody has benefit from a nutritional supplement in terms of some kind of health marker, that's all I need to know. Whether it's conspiratorial or not, I can't say, but I certainly know in pharmacy school, we were taught that all you need to do is eat foods and you won't have to worry about using any supplementation. I know I hear that from doctors all the time.
Well, also, one of the things that confused me was that, you have all these people saying, oh, you don't need to take these supplements. But yet my doctor tells me that, as you were saying, I need to supplement with things like magnesium and potassium because that's one of the things I take.
Right.
And I thought to myself, well, if this is what they're telling me to do and it's all snake oil, then why is it I need a magnesium supplement unless they know I need one, or a potassium supplement? I'm not getting enough potassium or magnesium.
Exactly.
And so, I guess then that my doctor should be fired if he's telling me to take these things. And so
B vitamins are a drug for heart disease. You can actually spend a lot of money on a B vitamin drug for heart disease. Potassium is a drug for heart disease. Magnesium goes right into if you go into the hospital with some kind of heart problem, some God forbid a heart attack or something, they'll put magnesium right in your blood. So what we call nutritional supplements are used as medicines in emergency rooms and hospitals. What we call nutritional supplements. You might as well just get the nutritional supplement. Why wait till you have a heart attack and have to stick magnesium and potassium right in your blood? Take 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams of magnesium every day. Now, that having been said, the word supplement means to supplement. It means to add to. So you still need quality food. There are things in food that we don't even know exist that are important for helping the body utilize these things we call supplements. So there are cofactors in food that we can't duplicate and put them in a pill because we don't even know they exist, which means it's always important to use food first as your source of nutrition and then supplement the food. This gets to the idea of macronutrition versus micronutrition. Macronutrition is the nutrition of energy, protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Micronutrition is the nutrition of magic. And by that, I mean it's the nutrition that helps you pull the energy out of the macronutrients, pull the energy out of the hamburgers and the steaks and the vegetables. The problem is today, foods are not complete. The hamburgers and the steaks and the vegetables don't have the micronutrients that they used to have, which means we can't access the energy that are in the proteins and the fats and the carbohydrates. This was Dr. Wallach's brilliant insight 50 years ago. He saw that people were getting plenty of macronutrients, plenty of the caloric nutrients, but not enough of the non-caloric nutrients because the soils were depleted. And this is why supplementation is so important, and this is why supplementation with your food is so important. So that when you're eating your food, that's when you want to use your supplements. The supplements will help you access the energy out of the micronutrient supplements will help you access the macronutrient energy from the foods.
And that's another thing is I always think to myself, well, if it's such a snake oil, then why do they recommend I take vitamin C and zinc when I have a cold?
Exactly.
It's like, well, am I getting enough vitamin C from orange juice? Well, hell, if I drink a lot of orange juice, I'll get sugar overdoses and I'll feel crappy. So, I mean, it just seems to me that there's a lot of confusing messages being sent out by these groups that send out what are known as PSA commercials, where they're actually promoting something underhandedly by saying this study states you should take this instead of this. You have pharma companies that come out saying, well, you need this drug because we lack this or we lack that. So they play the same game. The only thing is that what they're doing is they're giving you things that have gone through tests, but most of the time when they're on the counter, they're still going through the tests. In other words, they tested on a small group of people, but then you're still a guinea pig because they have
a guinea pig.
What's that?
They release drugs before they're completely tested. The last phase of testing is you and me. The public is the last stage of drug testing. That's why you'll see drugs pulled off the market like 10 years after they came out, 5 or 10 years after they came out, because they'll realize after they've been foisted on the public, they've been put out in the public, they realize they failed the test. So the last testing stage is when it's released upon the public.
Right.
How unfair is that? How rude is that? And I want to be very clear here. There seems to be a lumping together of nutrition and drugs in the sense that we think of nutrients as medicines. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the problem is medicines are not the same as nutrients because the body wants to eliminate medicines quickly. Nutrients are retained in the body. Medicines are eliminated so quickly that when they come up with dosages, the amount of medicine you're supposed to take, they have to account for something called first pass effect. First pass effect is the liver completely eliminating that drug really quickly. So when you take a drug, the dose is higher than necessary to account for the fact that the body wants to clear that drug out quickly. Nutrients don't have that problem. With nutrition, with vitamins, with minerals, essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, the body wants to hold on to them. It needs them. It's using them. With drugs, the body wants to eliminate them. It's like, get these Satan behind me, get out of here. I don't want to see you. Who are you? How did you get in here? Fortunately, the body has a poison control system that detoxifies it.
And, we're getting close to the time to wrap up, and we got about, I think, 8 minutes, and I wanted to touch base with you again on the show that we did a while ago about the opiate epidemic that they're talking about. I don't know if it's something that the media's made up, the DEA's made up, or they're basically feeling bad about putting out these medications. But the truth is that we had a show where we decided what the cure for this is. And it's not just marijuana. I know we've talked about the marijuana issue and whether or not, smoking marijuana gives you that feeling. And it does give you that feeling. It takes care of pain and other things. But one of the things that we lack in this country is bonding. And they're realizing that addiction is basically the lack of bonding. In other words,
self-soothing.
Yeah.
It's self-soothing. And we learn to self-soothe when we don't get nurtured by our parents. And it starts very, very young. The job of a parent is to tell a child that everything is safe, to soothe the child. And because of, parents have their own problems and their own lives, and they were raised their own ways, we're born without that. We don't get soothed enough, so we learn to self-soothe. Sucking your thumb is the first addiction. Hanging around with your blankie is the first addiction. We hang around with our blankie and we suck our thumbs to self-soothe. Hopefully we get over it as we learn some other coping strategies, but for many of us, drugs are perfect. You take a drug, you feel great. How are you going to tell somebody who feels crappy about their life, they got problems, they're dealing with issues, or they're in physical pain, you can take a pill and all of a sudden your problems go away. How can you tell somebody not to have that? It's impossible. Then to make matters worse, when you get off of the drug, your body craves the drug, so you go through withdrawal, so you absolutely need to have the drug. That's what addiction is. It's a really terrible situation. So what we need to do is we need to learn mechanisms and strategies for soothing ourselves naturally. And as you very sagely and wisely pointed out, Clyde, connection and love are what it's all about. Connection and love will get you through that. And I always tell people to wean yourself off of one of the best ways to wean yourself off of drugs is get yourself a hot bath or a hot tub. Why? What is it about a hot bath or a hot tub? Why do we all love hot baths and hot showers and hot tubs? because they remind us of the last place that we were safe for most of us. What was the last place we were safe for most of us?
When we're home.
The womb. Yeah. And that's why when you're freaked out, Clyde, what's the first thing if you're really freaked out enough, you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to go into a fetal position.
Right,
you know?
right.
In fact, just going into a fetal position will make you feel safe. If you ever feel traumatized by anything, go into a fetal position. Sit in a hot bath, sit in a hot tub. Get back to where you were last safe. And if you don't want to go all the way back into the womb, go back to mother, where we're connected. And that's where relationship comes in, because when we're in a relationship, our body secretes oxytocin, as we talked about the last time. Oxytocin is also secreted when we're sucking on a breast, when we're drinking mother's milk, when we connect with our mother. So learning how to access our neurochemistry through love, through connection, through relationship, this is so darn important. And that's why these 12-step programs are so great for people who are addicted, is because they get you connected. You see other people who are dealing with the problems. You're bonding with people. Sometimes you're bonding with people in a way you never bonded with before. You're feeling vulnerable. You're feeling open. And the only way to really connect with other people is to make yourself vulnerable and make yourself open. So using lifestyle strategies like hot water, relationships, forming good connections with people, 12-step programs. To me, that's the best way to get out of addiction.
And back to the treat thing, for me, it's always a slice of apple pie and black coffee. That's what.
There you go. All right.
That's what puts me in that oxytocin mood, and petting the cat.
How about a massage too?
Oh yeah, massages, petting
Love
the cat, looking the dog in the face.
That's great. You know, they give stress dogs to veterans who have PTSD. They give them dogs, and they let them pet the dogs. When you pet somebody vulnerable or work with something that's more vulnerable than you, that activates oxytocin as well. That's why people love babies. That's why people love puppies. Vulnerable people or vulnerability turns on our oxytocin. Helping people is another way to activate oxytocin.
So as we're wrapping up, what are your final thoughts on giving advice to people and what they need to do to better their lives and better their health?
I hate giving advice, but I always say work on the 4 dimensions of health and wellness, and don't underestimate all 4 dimensions. I call it SMEP: spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. Have some kind of spiritual connection in your life. See something bigger than you. You've got to connect with something bigger than you, even if it's something as mundane as a sports team, but hopefully it's something as big as humanity. Or hopefully it's something as big as Gaia or Mother Nature or God or Christ or whatever's bigger than you. Connect with something large. Help people. Serve. It's one of the greatest things we can do is serve. Secondly, leverage the power of your mind. Understand the power of thoughts. Everything is mental. The whole world exists in our brain, Clyde. Everything. Us talking right now, it's happening right between our ears. The whole world.
Cognitive liberty. That's why I call this cognitive liberty.
Beautiful. I love that. Cognitive liberty. Leverage the mind and leverage your emotions. Learn to work with love. You know, you can turn on love. You can just think about something you love and you'll stimulate all of the chemicals of love. Think about your mother. Think about your child. Think about anything. You know, love's a confusing word, but the same feeling that, the same biochemistry that is initiated when you think about someone you love is also initiated when you think about a food you love, or a TV show you love, or Tuesday, or Saturday, or anything you love will help access love chemistry. Learn to leverage your feelings like you learn to leverage your thoughts. And then physically, make sure you're eating as little as possible. Only eat when you need to eat. Make sure you're not eating food that's death food, food that's corporate food, food that's made by people who don't love you, food that's made simply to take advantage of you. Eat as little as possible and eat as carefully as possible. Make sure you're supplementing. Make sure you move your body. Make sure you're active, doing things, and make sure you're taking lots of long, luscious relaxation and rest.
Yeah, I felt that when the eclipse happened the other day, a couple days ago. It turned out to be a vacation I wasn't looking for, actually. I was actually taking it easy, enjoying the weather, feeling.
The body loves to rest.
Yes.
It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. You know, when you're sick, Clyde, you automatically want to rest. Your body is so wise that when you're sick, it will stick you in bed. It won't let you eat. You want to eat, and it won't let you move around because it knows it's important to rest. So make sure you take advantage of rest.
A lot of rest and a lot of ways to take care of yourself. Another way, too, is if you're interested in finding out more about how you can better your life, supplement your life, and learn a lot, groundzeroforlife.com. We have an area there on groundzeroforlife.com where you can supplement. There are things you can get where you can supplement. The number 2, 877-877-4202. That's 877-877-4202. 4202. There are operators that are there that if you have a problem and you want to improve on something, or if you want to eliminate something, there are supplements always there to take care of this without having to go out and seeing a doctor all the time and everything. You can supplement. And it also tells you too, when you go to the site, it says, make sure you tell your doctor when you're supplementing, because there are some things that may interfere with some of the drugs you take. I know that there's some things that I have to avoid because I take blood thinners now. And so
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Drugs, there are nutrients that will make your drugs more potent because you'll be stronger and you'll need lower dosages. So you always want to let your doctor know what you're doing. And I always tell people, I always tell people it's a good idea to wean yourself off your meds, but do everything with your doctor. Make sure you're advising him what you're doing. Because
of supplements, I've managed to lower the doses of most of the drugs I take.
Exactly.
So, and that's the thing is that, when people say, well, what kind of dosage do you have? I usually have the lowest dose. And it's because I'm supplementing that I used to have higher doses, and now they're saying, well, we can reduce the dose because you're taking this. We can reduce the dose because you're taking that.
That's awesome. That's drugs, nutrients potentize drugs. They make them stronger, so you'll be able to lower your dose.
Right. GroundZeroForLife.com, 877-877-4202. Ben Fuchs, is there any place they can go to see what you're doing, what you're up to?
Yeah, PharmacistBen.com is my blog. Also, criticalhealthnews.com. And then I have a whole, I'm in the skincare business. I've got a whole bunch of really super high-end skin treatments at truthtreatments.com. I also have a radio program I do every day called The Bright Side. And you just Google Pharmacist Ben and The Bright Side, you'll get all the information.
I'm going to have to hook up on that skin stuff because, of course, I have neurofibroma from a issue I have genetically. So maybe it would be
send me a good mailing address. I'll send you some stuff.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Ben Fuchs, always a pleasure. One of my favorite people. Thank you so much for being on.
Good to talk to you, Clyde. Take care, man.
Take care.